Hello everyone and welcome back to Good Night Mare. I'm Mare and today we're going to be talking about the stigmas of homeschool. It's a huge topic. We always have to defend what we've chosen to do. And I feel like no matter what you choose in life, you're always going to have to defend yourself, regardless of what that decision is. So bear with me, I do have my computer open and I kind of wrote down a list so I wouldn't forget anything. But I do want to hit those really, really important ones that we tend to get more of throughout our homeschooling life so far. So the first one that we are going to talk about is the homeschool stigma of socialization, everybody's favorite. So when we say socialization, we talk about how students interact with other people. When I was growing up and going to school, and I went to a Catholic school, we were most of the time told, you're not supposed to be socializing. School's not for socialization. And now I feel like that's all that people focus on when you tell them that you homeschool. What about the socialization? Well, my kids interact with people of all ages, races, backgrounds, denominations. It doesn't matter because we do all kinds of things. We do scouts, dancing, karate. We do computer classes, art classes, outdoor classes. We do so many things where we interact with people of all backgrounds. And so I feel like our kids, and maybe more than just our kids, I know lots of kids who do after school activities and extracurricular activities. That all counts as socialization. All of that knowledge that you get from interacting with those people, that is so worthy of building character. And it's so important to remember that socialization isn't limited to our classroom and to our family life. We socialize with the people in our neighborhood. We socialize so much, and people don't realize that. I think they focus on peer socialization, and that's fantastic. And yes, we do get lots of that, like I said, through our different extracurricular activities. But we also get things like going to the library, going to the grocery store, asking adults for help, helping smaller children than my children's ages. And so it's really important to remember that all of that encompasses socialization. Do not get stuck on that one hang up. And don't let anybody tell you that homeschooled kids aren't socialized. But it's such a huge stigma within the homeschooling community. And I think we need to break that. We really need to focus on how kind is your kid? How helpful is your kid? How does your kid react when introduced to a new person? Does he or she say her name or his name? Shake hands? These things are all qualities that we should be instilling in our kids, whether or not they're homeschooled. Just my personal opinion. On to the next one. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the control freak parent. I love getting this question. Oh, did you decide to homeschool because you wanted to have complete control over your child's curriculum? Alas, the opposite. I wanted to homeschool, and my husband totally agreed with me because we felt the curriculum at school was restraining. We wanted our kids to have access to everything within means, right? So we wanted our kids to have access to different computer programs, different coding applications, different dance, different after-school activities. We wanted them to be open to all things and to have a say in what they were learning. Our public school uses a curriculum, and we just were not really impressed. Sorry. You know, it's just the way it works for some families. Some families are completely fine working within the restraints of a curriculum by public school or private school. We just didn't feel it was right. We wanted our kids to have a say when they can in their math curriculum, science curriculum, English curriculum, what books they read. It's so important. And I feel like we have these lesson plans and we love Seton. We love that it comes all in a box. But we think outside that box. And it's really hard to do that when the students aren't learning in your own home. Yeah, there are public schools and private school kids who come home and do 1,000 different things in their after school time. Kudos to those families who make it work. We wanted to make it work during the day for us so that we would have that time when my husband gets home from work to really spend time as a family and work on those relationships. Relationships are really important to us. We teach our kids all about that. And our kids hound the mailman because they know that their pen pal letters are coming. Handwritten, genuine letters with pictures, with thought behind them. Snail mail. Not email, not text message, not instant message. They legitimately have to wait however long it takes for their pen pal letters to get here. And I'm sure on the other side, those kids are waiting with just as much anticipation as our kids are for their pen pal letters. And that's so sweet. And the relationships that we're fostering, again, socialization, it's just a different kind. We have lost that as a society, and maybe even just our generation. We have lost the idea of taking the time to sit down and write a thoughtful letter or a thoughtful thank you note. And for us, that was really important. So along with the socialization and along with the control freak, non-control freak parent, there are things that are just so wonderful about homeschooling. Now, again, there are some parents who took their kids out of school or maybe never sent their kids to school because they just didn't want to have their kids learning different behaviors, different morals from students whose morals and behaviors were not in line with their personal family beliefs. And that's totally fine. We should never, ever have to defend ourselves if we take our kids out of school because we feel like they're learning beliefs or behaviors that are not in line with our personal standards, with our personal morals. And that is okay. I totally stand behind that and believe in that. But we have to do that within reason. Again, there has to be balance. We can't raise extremists. We are Catholic. We believe that Christ loves all people. And so we roll with that. And our children treat everyone the same. Everyone. That's just how we were raised, my husband and I. And so that's how we're raising our kids. And it shows. So that brings me to our next thing. How are you qualified? Good question. I am not a college graduate. I will be the first person to say that. I had one semester left. I became very ill and I wasn't able to finish. So my husband has a PhD and I think once we get further along, he's going to have to take over math. He knows that. It's okay. We've said our prayers. We're okay with that. But for right now, my husband and I were entrusted by God to be the parents to these two. So we have to trust that God has given us all of the graces and all of the intelligence that we need to be able to educate our children. I have lesson plans so that I can make sure that I'm doing the best job that I possibly can. Again, I have seen the village and I don't want all of their morals and influences influencing my children, and that's okay. I'm equipped with what I have to know what I have to give to my children. And they are learning, they are happy, and they are so kind. And that is right up there with the intellectual intelligence. We have to make sure we match that with emotional intelligence, social intelligence, spiritual intelligence. Let's not forget, kids are human. They're just like adults. We have to make sure they're well-rounded. And that is our job as parents. And I believe that I am qualified because the Lord has entrusted that with me. I am responsible, my husband is responsible for raising these humans that the Lord has given us, and that is how I am qualified. Plain and simple. This is a big one that comes up. I have seen what public school, and that's the only thing I can compare my homeschool to because that's the only place my students have gone. I have seen what public school does to a child's spirit, And I won't say it happens to every student because it doesn't, but learning is so much more than a brick and mortar classroom with students who are assigned to a teacher and the teacher who's assigned to those students. Now, we just talked about how am I qualified. Have you ever questioned your student's teacher at school, how they're qualified? Do you know where your teacher went to school? Do you know their background? Have you done safety checks? Just putting it out there. I hear a lot of stories on the news about teachers or people who work with kids in school buildings who then have some really shady things happen, and we have to be aware of those situations. So in addition to their passion, we have to be aware of what's going on in those people's lives who are working with them on a daily basis. This is written on my computer. I have to read this because I don't know another way to say it. So I'm going to look this way for a second. I shouldn't have to defend my decision to homeschool. And sometimes I even have to defend it to other homeschooling families. That's a really, really hard thing for me to have to do. No one asks public or private school families about their decisions in any of those ways. We never do it. I don't know about others. Unfortunately, there are stigmas associated with homeschooling, and they're associated now with the way that my husband and I have chosen to educate our children. But instead of tearing each other apart, instead of doing that, why can't we raise each other up? Let's build each other up. Let's remember that what works for one family is not going to work for another family. We are all built differently, and that's okay. I think the hard part that no one wants to talk about is it's okay. It's okay to be different. It's okay to understand that those differences are going to lead us in different directions of life. We can't all be the same person. That's not what we're here on earth to do. It's a really hard thing to talk about. It's a really hard thing to think about. But maybe not every kid is supposed to be in public or private school. Maybe not every kid is meant for college. Maybe we need some tradespeople. Who would have thunk, right? But it's all possible. It's all possible. And we have to open ourselves to those possibilities. So